Welcome to episode 66 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Wink of an eye.
In this week's episode, Kirk is accelerated beyond human perception by an alien race seeking fertile donors to continue their species. Unable to interact with the rest of the crew, the captain faces a twin threat, firstly to his own place in the universe, and secondly to the Enterprise, which his captors intend to turn into a frozen prison for the crew. With options dwindling, hopes rest on Spock's ability to understand an unlikely message. But will he succeed? Or is the ship in for an icy shock?
We will not negotiate. You can go.
Aye.
What's the spark?
Was that Spock using Pike's voice there?
Sounded like it.
Yeah.
I thought it would be appropriate to have a very short clip.
We should just speak really fast for this episode, make sure people understand it and they can slow it down, play it like half speed and they can do it fine that way.
I think the American audiences have got enough trouble with our accents.
Some of them do.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd be used to it after 500 podcasts or whatever we've done.
Should have.
Yeah.
We've got to put up with their stuff all the time, watching all their movies,
Yeah, exactly.
TV shows. We get used to it.
Representation matters.
Actually, I did speed up one episode. I think it was the last one in season 2, maybe. I don't know. There was one
with the cat.
there was one episode where I was messing about with the editing software, and I took out all the silences.
Right.
I thought that would help me in my workflow.
Of course.
And now it just sounds like we
Don't listen to each other.
don't listen, just talk along. There's no pauses for contemplation or anything else. So that episode should be quite obvious. It wasn't us rushing through it, it was me taking out a lot of silences. And then I thought, I can't be bothered trying to put them back in.
They were all done for dramatic effect as well.
Yeah.
Still, this one, season 3, back to top form again.
Brilliant episode. Well, very good episode and a very good season.
Better Spock-McCoy dynamic than last week as well.
I think so, yeah.
The week before.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting to see Star Trek do Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes. I think it's a concept that's been mimicked. I don't know who did it first, whether they've taken this from...
But it wasn't Sonic, I can tell you
Well,
that.
it wasn't Sonic. It could have been Marvel, though. You've got characters in
Flash.
Yeah, well, Flash is DC, and you've got Quicksilver, I think.
Quicksilver, now that is a good movie with Kevin Bacon from about 1986, where he plays a down-in-his-luck stockbroker who takes up bicycle couriering to make ends meet.
Be an Uber driver today.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. Yes.
Uber Eats deliverer.
Yeah. And I like it. It's a good movie. And it's got some nice stunt scenes and action scenes on the bikes. And I think there's a good song by Roger Daltrey as well, if I remember correctly. Not The Who, but Roger Daltrey on his one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched a classic movie recently for the first time.
Well, I've got to try and guess, but there's a lot to choose from. What one?
Jaws.
First, Ian, I'm not even...
I mean, I've seen most of it
Yeah.
in and out, but it's the first time I've sat down and just watched the movie.
Yeah. I'm not... You shouldn't boast about that. Like,
It's got Dreyfus in it.
it has, yeah.
Nobody knew that.
What?
Well, I didn't know that.
Right.
I saw him, I was like, oh, it's Dreyfus.
Uh-huh.
I wonder what he's more famous for, but I couldn't find anything in his history that he was more famous for.
No.
He's probably famous for being in Jaws.
Stakeout. Or the voice over in Stand By Me.
Well, that's one option, I suppose. Yeah. Chief Brody's not been in anything much else that he's known for.
What?
He's not known better for.
No, not better for, but he's been in a lot of things.
No, all these people in this movie are best known for being in this movie.
Yeah, because it's one of the biggest movies of all time, of course.
The mayor seemed quite contemporary, actually.
There's no problem at all. Keep everything open.
The economic activity. I like the committee of business people saying, we can't shut down the beach.
Exactly. Topical, Ian. Topical. For now.
Always topical.
But by definition, it's not. Topical's not always topical, is it?
No, but these things come round.
We're rambling an awful lot this week.
Should we get into the episode?
Let's crack on.
The Scotty log to start us off.
5710.5.
There's a distress call. Kirk and his pals have gone down to the planet and Scotty's left in charge.
I feel like this happens a lot more often these days, a distress call. And
well, they seem to respond to anything that they hear.
I mean, that's not their job. They don't go about the galaxy.
Well, it is.
No, it's part of their job. It's not their primary function, isn't to put out fires, as it were.
No, but it'd be a really boring episode if it was just charting a star system.
Or yeah, taking a cargo of...
We're transporting some rice to this other planet so they can grow rice in their climate. This planet's called Scalos?
Yes.
Or Scalos?
Scalos, yeah. We're down in the city, and there's quite a cool backdrop, sort of matte painting effort, I think.
This is a remastered edition.
Is it?
I believe the original might have reused the MNER 7 one.
Kirk communicates with Scotty, who is unable to get a fix on the readings he has taken and thinks there may be a sensor malfunction.
He does, and Uhura similarly is contacted, and she confirms that they are in the correct location.
Yeah, she has visual contact on the screen, her viewing screen, with 2 men and 2 women, but she can't see Kirk at the same time.
It's very strange.
Yeah, this confuses him as apparently there are no Skasolians present. However, Uhura insists that they're there and pleading for help.
I thought they looked like extras from American Gothic.
I'm not sure if I've seen American... I think I've actually got the first season, but
I
not
mean
what...
the painting.
Oh, right, okay.
You must have seen the painting American Gothic.
I'm sure I have, yeah.
The farmer with his pitchfork and his wife beside him.
Okay.
It's classic.
Is it?
These guys look like them.
Right.
Okay.
I'll get to their dress in a moment.
Right. Anyway, Uhura insists this is a very strong distress call and they're pleading for immediate assistance, so she's also told to check for malfunctions.
However, there's an obvious, well, it would appear to be an obvious insect life form as Kirk swats something away, even though McCoy informs him it doesn't register on his tricorder. Spock then appears to offer his thoughts on the situation.
Nothing, Mr. Spock? Evidently a civilization of high order. Rating number 7 on the industrial scale. Humanoid in appearance, according to the paintings. An abundance of literature which I shall have translated and processed. Certain structures hold evidence of recent occupancy, while others are apparently long abandoned. No sign of present life. Instrument readings indicate life form, but of a highly unusual and intermittent nature. They have no discernible form or location. A most puzzling phenomenon, Captain. I shall have to study it further.
Something was here. We saw them on the screen. Lieutenant Uhura is still getting a distress call. What happened?
Unknown at present, Captain.
Mr. Spock, I want you to run a survey. Complete survey of the planet using all ship's available instruments.
Compton.
What happened?
I was looking at him. I was looking right at him, and he just wasn't there.
It's worth noting that Compton, we see, was drinking from a streamer.
Yes.
Now, he's an idiot. You don't go down to an unknown planet and just start consuming...
Yeah, well, unless he scanned it and tested it, but it seems an odd choice.
Is he that thirsty that he has to drink right there?
Oh, who can say?
Sure, does not bring like supplies with them. Let's bring our own
Lunchbox.
Lunchbox, yeah. You'd have thought they'd bring, if they're going to be down for so long, certainly bring drinks.
They only just got there.
And they've got their little tablets these days anyway. Do they have hydration tablets because they've got food that they can eat, can't they?
Probably dehydrated food and drink that they can just take.
Yeah, so why is he like something from 1,000 years ago lapping from the water like an animal?
Oh, fresh water's better.
Scumbag that he is. I'm glad he disappeared. He's an idiot.
Oh, he is an idiot, that's for sure. Also an idiot is Spock. Well, maybe not an idiot, but what he said didn't make a lot of sense.
Explain.
You've got intermittent life forms that are of no position.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense to us, but neither does the bending of time and things like that. Ian, you don't try and understand it.
Anyway, we get the credits after this disappearance and return it to the bridge with the landing party safely back aboard the Enterprise, minus Compton, of course.
Yeah, where a purposeful Kirk enters and asks Uhura for a replay of the distress call, and Scotty confirms that the transporter controls are working now. Again, were they not working?
I don't remember any mention of them not working, but I guess he's reported this at some point. Scotty says they are now working and asks if Spock is still on the planet, but he's not.
Where is he?
Sick bay.
Why?
McCoy's doing tests on everyone who was on the planet, just to make sure there are no other issues or no unanticipated issues.
It seems sensible enough.
Yeah.
Uhura tells him there is a malfunction with the replay, but then it immediately corrects itself as Sulu informs him that the controls in the hangar deck appear to be frozen.
Yep, so repair crews are assigned to deal with that, and Uhura plays the message back.
Yeah, where we witness a guy in a dress who explains that they are the last of 5 of a once thriving civilization, and they don't know what is happening, but they used to have they used to number 900,000.
Yeah, so Spock enters the bridge just as that begins to play, and he concludes it may have been pre-recorded.
Yeah, it's not a good look. It's
not very stylish.
Nah.
Anyhow, Kirk notes that Spock's theory doesn't hold up either, because you'd expect to find some form of remains if they'd been pre-recorded and then died.
Yeah, I think Kirk points out that the fact is that the people were there and now they're not.
Yeah, and Compton's disappeared, so something's happening. It's a case of this was recorded long ago and they're no longer there.
Spock then states the obvious in that a force only partially detectable to their instruments is responsible. And so Kirk orders Sulu to have the ship remain on standby.
Yes, and in return he's informed that the deflectors are inoperative and the controls are frozen.
So a worried Kirk demands an explanation from Spock. McCoy then communicates through, telling Kirk that he is required for an investigation.
Yeah, well, it's Kirk's own orders. He wanted all the landing party assessed, and he's the last one.
And he enigmatically tells him that he would rather discuss his findings with him in person.
Oh, maybe he's found something important.
Doesn't really come to much.
No, he hasn't found anything. That's what he tells him when he gets there. Everyone was fine.
Yeah, on arrival, McCoy tells Chapel to let him know what she has found.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, this doesn't make sense to me. So Chapel says someone's been messing around with the medical supply cabinets. They've opened them all up, looked at everything and not taken anything. And Kirk says this fits with the other disturbances.
Does it? It doesn't really.
Well, to a certain extent, I suppose things were getting frozen and then released without any damage, but it's not the same. Freezing systems isn't the same as going through a cupboard.
Maybe they know that Chapel is OCD and they're just rearranging all their...
Could be.
Yeah. Kirk then lies down for his examination and asks what McCoy's reading of the other men showed.
Yeah, nothing.
It's rather a letdown, isn't it?
Yeah. Kirk then hears that buzzing noise again, starts to sit up.
And he asks if he could be hallucinating.
McCoy concludes that he's probably not hallucinating.
And so Kirk comes to the conclusion that they beamed something aboard and turns quickly as he tries to spot what has invaded the ship.
He then tries to contact Spock, but it seems there's a problem with the onboard communication system.
So what does he do?
He asks Uhura to issue a ship-wide order to use handheld communicators, and also for all crew members to be issued phasers at this time.
Now, at this point, Spock manages to get his message across, and it's not good news.
No, there are some form of alien substances being introduced at life support in the environmental engineering department.
Yeah, that's sub-ideal.
I would say so.
Out in the corridor, they meet in a jog, Kirk and Spock that is, on their way to life support. Is it life systems or life support? What do we call it?
It doesn't really matter. It's in the environmental engineering department, because we see a sign on the door that says that.
They meet up and are shocked to witness 2 red shirts.
Yeah, they're running ahead of them slightly.
Yeah, but they end up on their backs. Why? How? What?
They run into a force field at full speed.
Spock gets readings of an alien presence similar to that on the planet's surface, but he can't get an idea on their precise location.
You know, we have a word for people who say they can feel an alien presence, and they won't be more specific than that.
Lunatics.
Yes.
Yes. Liars or lunatics.
Exactly.
They sweep the area in front of them with their phasers. Is this? I've not seen this.
They've done it before.
Have they?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Proceed forward only for the 2 red shirts. They manage to get up again to be sent sprawling once more.
Yes, they're not getting through this force field. However, it does not seem to affect Spock, and it does not seem to affect Kirk.
In life systems, they enter to find an alien device hooked into their life support system, but they immediately come to the conclusion that it is incomplete. I'm not sure how you would know.
Well, because life support's still working. That's their reasoning.
Yeah, but you don't know what this device is meant to do.
No, you don't. Spock tries to touch it and gets electrocuted, and when they try to shoot it, their phasers vanish out of their hands and they end up on their backsides. Stupid
Kirk then shouts out like a drunk, asking what they're doing in his ship, before they touch the device again and get shocked like Homer Simpson.
Yeah, just keep doing the same thing.
They're morons here.
Spock concludes they're allowed to look but not touch, and it's a show of strength by their enemy, who doesn't think they can be stopped.
Alright, okay, again, there's quite a bit of leapery there.
Massive leapage.
Back up on the bridge, they ask the computer if they have been invaded.
These are my favourite bits when they do this. It's like, we can't figure it out, let's just put all the data in and let the computer tell us what's happening.
It seems like it's quite a lazy writing
It's
hack.
a plot device, yeah.
Yeah,
It's so you don't have Spock doing it all the time,
sure.
I guess. Anyhow, the computer says that they have been invaded, don't know by who, don't know by how many people, but the short-term purpose is to obtain control of the Enterprise.
It also says that they are unable to resist and advises that they should negotiate terms, but both Kirk and Scotty agree, as we heard at the top of the podcast, they will do no such thing.
Indeed. A yeoman at this stage walks in with some coffee.
Yeah, I actually said a waitress. I know she's called a yeoman, but they're treating her like a waitress here.
Yeah, it's a little bit 1960s, isn't it? The cup of coffee.
I was expecting her to roller skate by.
Burgers and fries in one hand and coffee in the other hand.
As Sulu's sitting there watching a movie in the big screen.
What I don't understand is why Kirk doesn't have an espresso machine in his chair.
Exactly.
Anyway, he takes his coffee. I think Scotty and Sulu take coffees, and then Kirk hears that sort of buzzing noise again.
Yeah, I think he's starting to feel a bit paranoid.
Yeah, but he does have a plan.
What's that?
He tells them that what they should do is let the enemy take the next step.
Yeah, he seems unduly pleased with this, as if it's some, wisdom has been...
Yeah, a master plan.
Yeah.
That'll solve it.
So yeah, he sits in his seat, but the buzzing starts again, and he gets even more paranoid as everyone seems to be moving in slow motion now.
Yeah, he takes a drink from his coffee and grimaces, and then when he gathers his senses, finds he cannot communicate with anybody else.
And then a youngish, blonde woman appears on the bridge.
That's generous.
Which brings a smile to his face, as you would expect. He walks to her for an explanation, and I think for the first time ever, he fights off a sexual advance when she grabs and kisses him.
Yeah, she introduces herself as the enemy.
Yeah, Dealer.
Indeed.
She confirms that she beamed up with them, but sort of sneers at the time it took, so obviously they're more advanced.
Yeah, I think someone did some math that looked into this. It would take it about 20 minutes to beam up from their point of view.
Okay. But she also claims to have done nothing to his crew, his men. He points out the crew are all still frozen and asks her if this is nothing according to her. But she states that they are the same. It is he who is different, and begins to explain what has happened.
I cannot hear you, Captain. To their ears, you sound like an insect. Oh, that's your description, Captain. Accurate, if unflattering. Really? There is nothing wrong with them.
What have you done?
Changed you. So you are like me now. Your crew cannot see you, or any of us, because of the acceleration. We move in the wink of an eye. Oh, there is a scientific explanation for it. But all that really matters is that you can see me and talk to me. And we can go on from there.
Why?
Because I like you. Didn't you guess? Or are you so accustomed to being kissed by invisible women?
Dealer. Is this why you sabotaged my ship?
Oh, it has not been sabotaged. We had to make some changes in it to adjust it to us.
You said we?
Yes, of course. My chief scientist and his crew. I am their queen. You are going to be their king. You'll enjoy living on Scalus.
What about my ship? My crew?
Oh, in a few of their moments, they will realize that you've vanished. They will look for you. They will not find you. You're accelerated far beyond their power to see, so they'll go on without you. Don't be so stubborn. You cannot go back to them, ever.
Kirk's not happy about this.
No, he threatens her with a stunning, and she laughs patronisingly.
Yes, he fires his phaser at her, but she has plenty of time to sidestep the beam.
Again, a bit like Sonic.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Good movie, that.
With the Jim Carrey one, yeah. I enjoyed it, yeah.
Disappointed that the second one was delayed because of COVID.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll show up.
It's due, I think, in April next year.
I think that's fairly quick.
Really?
I'm pretty sure Sonic was the last thing I saw in the cinema before the lockdown.
Yeah, but
So it has been quite a while.
it has been.
Anyhow,
She then pulls out a weapon of her own and whips away his phaser and tells him just to accept things.
yes. She assures him that everybody starts out agitated, but calms down eventually.
Yeah, it always happens this way. And like the rest, he will learn to like it.
He asks her if she'll put the ship right if he leaves and goes with her, and she tells him not to be so silly. Of course not.
I think at this point he pushes past her.
Yeah, he leaves.
And as he does, she presses a button on her choker to communicate with someone else and tells them that he's on his way, but to be gentle with him.
We then slow back down to normal speed and see the bridge crew realise that Kirk has gone.
Spock asks Uhura if she saw what happened, and she says that he was just sitting there drinking coffee and then vanished, and for some reason Spock won't accept this from Uhura and asks Sulu to confirm it, which he does. I mean, if it was a guy, he probably would have...
He probably would have taken it.
Yeah, but it's like, daft women seeing things, emotional, no
You
doubt.
did ask her.
Out in the corridor.
Kirk is heading back down to environmental engineering.
Yes, and he runs up to two frozen and red shirts before Compton appears and happily admits that he has also been accelerated before he prevents Kirk from entering life systems on orders of the commander.
Yes, he's now a Skalosian himself, or willing to behave as one. He's been allocated a woman, I believe, and the plan has been explained to him.
Kirk reminds him that he is his commander, but Compton advises him that this is no longer the case, just as Deela walks past them.
Yeah, so Kirk goes to walk away before spinning and disarming Compton.
Yeah, I think he knocks him out with a kick.
Yeah.
And he enters life systems, but is met by the two guys in dresses holding weapons who immediately stun him and then strike down Compton, who for some reason tries to help Kirk.
Yeah, because they hurt him. He realised he was loyal to him. It broke his... Anyhow, Compton collapses to the ground and rapidly ages and then dies.
Yeah, this is due to cell damage, we're told.
Well, we're going to find that out.
This leader chap, I'm not sure if he is the leader, if Deela's the leader. I'm not sure.
She said she's the queen.
Okay.
So I guess that he's below her.
Unless he's the king.
No, because Kirk was going to be the king, that's what she said.
Ah, right, okay. Maybe he's a prime minister.
Yeah.
Or president.
He's the head practical guy.
Yeah.
He gets things done.
He's an executive. Anyway, this chap turns to Deela and assures her that another will be secured for her. You see, that's the thing, and so who was
No, this is for the other woman. It's not for Deela. So the other woman there was going to be assigned Compton, but he's now gone.
Fair enough. Back up in the bridge. Spock has Kirk's coffee cup and has a trace reading similar to what they found on the planet.
This leads to mass panic between Sulu and Scotty, who think they're going to be next, having also drunk the coffee.
Yeah, so what does I think Spock tells Scotty to go and have these drinks analysed?
Yeah, Spock can't give him any reassurance and says that as the enemy have now taken the next step, like the captain suggested, they need to produce some kind of countermeasure. So Spock himself is heading to the lab and Scotty's being left in charge of the bridge.
Down there, a saddened Deela leans over Kirk on the floor and admonishes this chap who is Rael, is that his name?
Rael or Rael.
Rael, for losing his temper and damaging Compton, something she doesn't want to happen to Kirk.
Yes, she likes him because he's pretty.
Yeah, okay. But Rael claims that he is inferior, an opinion that she obviously disagrees with.
Yeah, he warns her not to get attached, and she says she'll do what she wants because it's her duty and it's not his place to become jealous just because she enjoys doing her duty.
Kirk then stirs, jumps to his feet, demanding to know what the device is doing on his ship. And Rael tells him Deela will explain everything as he walks to the side.
Yeah, she tells him that eventually he will approve of this, but he's sceptical. Kirk, that is.
Yeah, she laughs when Kirk describes the crew as their prisoners, stating that he's free to go whenever he wants to. And over the device, Rael encourages him to study it, but advises against touching. And again, like Homer Simpson, he does so and gets the obligatory shock.
Well, no, I think he gets his hands are frozen.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, so he puts one hand on it briefly and can hardly touch it, like as if it was liquid nitrogen or something.
Okay, sure.
Then he puts both hands on it and his hands start to freeze.
Again, he's been shocked by it, and this guy tells him, don't touch it.
Yeah, he just touches it. So Deela peels him away from the machine and notes his hands are close to frozen and chastises him for touching it at all.
He then turns to find Compton, decrepit on the floor, and is told that when he hit him, he damaged some of his cells, causing rapid aging and death. So a devastated Kirk leaves, and Deela asks Rael why he lied, as it was himself who damaged Compton, not Kirk.
Yeah, so Rael says it might curb Kirk's violent streak. Deela notes that he's only temporary and finds out that he's gone to the medical lab to try and speak to Spock.
Yeah, and she wonders out loud whether this affection that he has for his crew, his comrades, will be demonstrated to them, which doesn't help Rael's mood.
No, and then he gets all rapey and forces a kiss on her.
Yeah, she rejects this and tells him to go back to his work. Stupid little boy.
Yeah. Down in the medical lab.
Yeah, we join Kirk with a frozen Spock, McCoy and Chapel as he attempts to leave a log for them.
Hyper-acceleration is the key. I have counted only 5 of them aboard, but they have taken over the ship, and we are under their control due to this acceleration. They are able to speed others up to their level, as they did Compton and me. Presumably, this is enslavement. Those so treated exist at this accelerated level, becoming docile eventually. But when
Damaged.
they age incredibly fast, as though accelerated living
Burns them out.
burns them out. Compton was burned out. The device attached to the life support systems produces an extreme numbing cold. It is my belief that they are turning the Enterprise into a gigantic deep freeze for purposes only the Scalosians know.
Quite correct.
The unit has a protective shield which does not allow any physical contact. I don't know how to destroy it, but its destruction is imperative.
If the unit will be activated, by the time they hear this, it will be too late.
Deela praises Kirk for his remarkable reasoning powers,
Slippery, yeah.
saying he was quite right in almost every assumption. And she goes on to make a long speech that I'm surprised wasn't part of our clip.
Why?
Because I've not really broken it down, I've just got it written here.
Okay, she says that they used to be like him, but their planet was nearly destroyed by volcanoes and they were then changed by radiation. Many children died and it was not possible to have any more or many more, as the men had become sterile from drinking radiated water. And so they had to mate outside of their own people. So when spaceships went past their planet, they would call them down, but apparently the acceleration process burned them out. And their plan is to take him and perhaps a few others down to the planet and breed.
There's only 5 of them. They're going to end up with half-brothers and half-sisters.
Of course. That's Adam and Eve.
A lot of incest. Although I suppose there's not going to be any incest if they only breed with outsiders.
Do you think maybe they're bringing down more and more people then?
Yeah, that's the idea. They'll capture every spaceship that comes by.
Okay.
And I think they have been. I don't think Deela's the first generation.
Right.
So she says next that the Enterprise crew will be kept in suspended animation so that whenever they need a man, they can just bring one down and accelerate
If it's just for breeding, can they not just milk Spock?
Just keep samples.
Yeah.
Get a turkey baster. Anyhow, no, apparently they can selectively activate them when required, and they have a right to survive, and killing others is no different to Kirk trying to unplug her device.
But he barks at this, not at the cost of other people, and she responds by saying that he would have done the same.
He challenges her to try a different solution. He says they'll help.
Yeah, but she claims that they're going to handle it in the only way that they know how, and like the generations before them. So Kirk asks if this has solved their problem, the generations of doing this, and begs her to disconnect the device.
She is convinced, however, that deceleration would be fatal to them, and this is the only option. We then have Rael coming on comms telling Deela to take Kirk to the transporter room.
Yeah, as she talks, we see him take his recent recording that he made just before she entered, and he places it in the machine that frozen Spock, is currently working on, and then leaves. And she notes to Rael that he's no longer there.
Yeah, and she's told to go after him. So is Rael able to order her around? Does she order him around? It seems to be about 50-50.
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, we're at the lab, back in real time.
Yes, time slows down, and we hear McCoy tell Spock there's something in both the Scalusian water and Kirk's coffee that matches but isn't found anywhere else. However, unfortunately, neither of them see Kirk's tape.
Not at this point, no. Deela finds Kirk in the transporter room just after he was messing around with its controls. He claims to have ran away from her because he panicked. Although she doesn't believe him, but nonetheless, she communicates with Rael to tell him that they can now activate it.
Yeah, she tries to beam Kirk down to the surface, however the transporter is no longer working.
And she correctly assumes that he's done something. However, he denies this and she seems to accept it before communicating again with Rael to tell him of the malfunction.
Yep, she tells him that Kirk didn't have time to break it, so there must be some other issue. Kirk says the technicians reported a loss of power earlier, but Rael is dubious.
She then ends this communication and reveals that she would have suspected him of being behind the problem if she had a suspicious mind. So that means we understand that she does suspect him, but she is so attracted to Kirk that she's willing to sacrifice that for a bit of time with him.
She says that she despises devious people, and he agrees that honest relationships are best.
And then he starts his famous flirting with her by playing with her hair.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we cut away at that point back to the lab where Chapel is asked to find a counter agent to the coffee.
Yes, Spock has made a breakthrough and he hears this buzzing noise, which McCoy confirms. So I think this is Kirk leaving.
Right.
And it's just that it's taken them this long to notice.
Sure, that would make sense.
Yeah. So McCoy confirms he keeps hearing this buzzing every now and then, and Spock thinks he can now identify it, but leaves without seeing Kirk's tape.
And we head over to Kirk's quarters, where Deela describes them as being like him, efficient and handsome, before she decides to freshen up and is pleased to see that he has all the necessary tools. He's got combs and brushes and perfumes and all sorts. Yeah, well,
whatever you need. It's in my cabinet of wonders. She confirms that he is unmarried and has no ties nor attachments other than to his work. But Kirk says that if a woman is pretty enough, he will look.
Yeah, but she takes it as a compliment. Yeah. It's a bit. That scene is all a bit icky.
She says it was one thing kissing him when he couldn't stop her or see her.
She certainly was one thing, yeah.
And this is a different thing, apparently.
But this time he's only too happy to accept, and she seems quite overcome by his technique, his wonderful technique, although not enough to allow him to remove her weapon.
No, she knows that that's what he was after there and would have been disappointed if he hadn't tried. And she reminds him that all she has to do is scratch him and he'll accelerate and die. She
again mentions the fact that she thinks he will come round to their way of thinking sooner or later. And I think she says sooner would be better than the kiss again.
Yeah, I think he's taking a bit of a risk here, knowing that a scratch could kill him.
Oh, yeah. Anything at all, yeah. Any physical contact.
I'd be making her wear very soft gloves.
Would you know? Is that some sort of kink you've got?
No, anything doesn't velvet, those sharp nails getting involved.
Velvet gloves, eh? Whatever you're into, Ian, I don't want to hear about it.
Anything doesn't kill me through acceleration.
Okay.
Up on the bridge, Spock has Uhura play...
Well, I was thinking, sorry to interrupt you there, but, if you were, without wanting to get too graphic, I'm assuming that any sort of friction would cause cell damage to an extent.
Yeah, no, he needs to be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially if she gets carried away.
Carry on.
Up on the bridge, Spock has Uhura play the distress call again, and we see Rael speak, but interspersed with the landing party.
Yeah, where are we getting this footage from?
I'm not entirely. Maybe he's playing the two, one over the other.
No, but how do they have footage of the landing part?
Oh, they got it from the earlier scene that was shown.
Yeah.
Spock speeds up and slows it down, and finally speeds it up to hear this familiar sort of buzz.
Meanwhile, down in the lab, McCoy plays the recording that Kirk left, and as soon as he does, it makes the high-pitched sound, and so he calls Spock to tell him, and he is told to bring it to the bridge.
You'd think they would just take it off him once they heard him say that, but maybe they didn't notice, because next thing, we're on the bridge and they're watching Kirk's message.
Yeah, and on its completion, Uhura is told to let the rest of the crew know what is going on. I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah.
It's quite a...
You sort it out, Uhura.
It's quite a complex sort of theory to get across.
Yeah, we've been attacked by accelerated beings.
So what does that mean? What would I do?
Don't run.
Don't swat anything. Scotty asks if phasers can be used to cut through the force field to get to the unit, but Spock rejects this, but states that trying to battle them on their own level is a logical suggestion.
Yes, Scotty actually came up with that. It's the first good idea he's had, I think.
First ever, yeah.
Outside of engineering.
Okay.
Anyhow, Scotty's told to head to the transporter room, and we then see him in the doorway on his way, but very, very slowly, as we are on accelerated time now.
Yeah, we see Rael trying to fix the transporter control unit, and is joined by a friend.
Ecor.
Is that his name?
Yes.
Who tells him that that's the only element that's damaged, the only thing that's causing a problem. So he tells him to bring the others before trying to communicate with Deela, who is ignoring him.
Yeah, as we see in Kirk's quarters.
Yeah, and he sets off in a rage. Yeah, now that's the thing. Yeah, okay. So we go back to Kirk's quarters, where we see him pulling on his boots. Now, obviously they've done the business.
Oh, it looks like it. Deela's combing her hair, and Rael runs in as the Kirk and Deela kiss again. Yeah,
it takes a swing for him. They fight, and as he lifts his arm to strike, Deela pulls out her weapon, and what does she do?
She stuns him twice.
Yeah, I think in fairness, Kirk tries to tell her not to do it. He doesn't want her to kill.
Yeah, he doesn't want him killed, that's for sure. He's just defending himself with a chair at this stage.
Yeah, but as you say, she blasts him and tells him to stop. She then humiliates him by telling him never to try and harm the man that she has selected, and doesn't want to know anything about his feelings for her.
He accuses her of tormenting him.
So she sends him off to finish repairing the transporter, leaving her and Kirk alone with an awkwardness in the air.
He loves me. I adored him when I was a child. I suppose I still do. I must say you behaved better than he did.
I hope so.
What did you say?
I said I hoped I behaved correctly.
And nothing bothers you now?
Why are we here?
Our leaving was delayed. Don't you remember? You damaged the transport.
Oh, yes. That was wrong of me.
Yes, it certainly was.
But we are going to Scalos.
Do you want to?
Oh, yes.
What about your crew? Aren't you worried about them?
They'll be all right.
Oh.
What's the matter?
Nothing. You've completely accepted the situation, haven't you? You even like it.
Am I behaving incorrectly?
No. I liked you better before. Stubborn and irritating and independent, like Rael.
Those are undesirable qualities.
Maybe that's why I liked you so much. Because you were like him. Rael, you don't have to worry about the captain. He's made the adjustment.
She is really quite gullible, isn't she?
Not the sharpest tool in the box.
Doesn't take much to convince her, just speaking quite slowly and saying, yes, mistress.
You can give credit to Kirk. He's obviously seen Compton earlier on, and he maybe is mimicking the behaviour of an assimilated drone.
Okay. Back to the medical lab, where McCoy gives Spock the antidote, but it's not certain it will work in the human body, and doesn't in any case know how they're going to give it to Kirk.
Without wanting to discuss it any further, Spock just drinks some of the Scalosian water.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to head off with this counter-agent.
Yeah, but you notice that McCoy's now slowing down, or has slowed down.
Of course.
Which means,
then we see from McCoy's perspective that Spock's gone. In the transporter room, the device has been repaired, and the three other Scalosians that aren't Rael and Deela are beamed back to the surface.
I mean, he does sort of have the attitude of a spurned schoolboy.
Yeah, Dealer doesn't understand why she wasn't told that the transporter was ready, and he's like, I didn't want to intrude.
And she apologises, I think, for her maybe rubbing his nose on it.
Yeah, maybe.
He then leaves for life support so that he can activate the device. Was it not? I don't understand this.
It wasn't finished. It's now finished.
But it just transported 3 people.
No, this is the icing device that's in life support.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, he's off to turn that on, and she and Kirk arrive at the transporter room as she tells him it is time to leave.
But sneaky Kirk grabs her weapon and leaves her. And so she calls Rael to let him know that he's on his way to get him.
Yeah, so he's just turned on this unit and advised her of that and says he's ready for Kirk.
In the corridor, Kirk is pleased to meet up with Spock.
Oh, you say please? He doesn't react in anything like the way I would have expected him to.
I think they've got such a chemistry between them, they both know they don't have to high-five.
Spock would come for him.
Yeah. They proceed to life support, and from outside they are easily able to shoot Rael down and destroy the device. That was quite fast. Well, they didn't put up much of a fight, did they?
No, well, they're working on accelerated time. Deela shows up, and the 3 of them go into the room, and she sadly notes that Kirk tricked her and is very, very upset.
Well, that's it. She says, you're very smart. I said, no, you're very stupid.
That's what I would have said.
She asks him what happens now, and his suggestion is to put them into suspended animation, just like she was going to do, but agrees that their survival doesn't depend on that, and so asks what she thinks should happen to them.
Yeah, Kirk's concerned that they'll just do the same thing to the next ship, but Deela notes that he will warn others and the Federation will quarantine the area, a bit like last week. Yeah. She says they will eventually just die, and that'll solve everybody's problem.
Now, I assumed that they would come up with something a little...
No, that's the solution.
Yeah. Okay, see you later then.
Yep.
Bye, nice meeting you.
Or maybe she's pregnant, you don't know.
In the transporter room...
Scotty's barely moved into the room since this whole thing started.
Yeah, I think she suggests again, she tries to encourage him to come with her. He says that he'd be happier in Scalos, and he says yes, he would, but it'd be a very brief existence.
He also, he says the only thing he'd prefer to spending the time with her is to spend the time alive.
She, I think, counters by saying, yeah, well, it's going to be a brief existence for you here because you
can't change back
to your own level. And there's a look between Kirk and Spock at this point.
Yeah, Kirk assumes he's got some kind of solution, otherwise he wouldn't be there.
And at this point, she and Rael are beamed back down.
Yes. Spock then explains to Kirk that they have a counter-agent, but it is untested, so Kirk tests it by drinking it
straight away
and says nothing's happening. That's a bit of a disaster.
However, Spock points out that he is moving very slowly.
Before Scotty sees him in real time and asks about Spock. So Kirk's safe. He's returned.
Yeah, it would seem to be.
So he does a captain's log.
5710.9.
Mr. Spock has taken the risk of remaining in accelerated time and hoping he doesn't get scratched to repair the ship.
Well, that's a risk, isn't it? If you're doing any sort of
engineering work, yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't take much to cut your hand on the side of a cabinet.
You do it all the time,
yeah.
So he's taking a massive risk, but he trusts his Vulcan senses, I guess. He's going to repair the ship very rapidly. And we're up on the bridge. Yeah,
where he does appear to the compliment of Kirk and delivers a terrible 80s style pun.
Yeah, this is a brilliant finish. Spock just delivers. It's fantastic out of nowhere. He says he found it an accelerating experience. It's the best Spock line of the whole series. Because he doesn't laugh or smile, he just says it and walks off. Before Kirk is surprised to see Deela appear on the screen. Yeah, so Uhura says she's accidentally pressed play on this distress call. Yeah, right. You're messing about with Kirk's head. Yes, she definitely is. She says she'll turn it off as Kirk says goodbye to Deela, and it's off on another adventure. Yeah, there we go. That's quite good. Strong episode. Not a lot to say about it because I think it was just, fairly, everything sort of made sense as much as it can when you're talking about this type of thing. And here's the thing, again, without wanting to do my rant again, people saying, oh, Spock's head, silly, but I mean, consider this, what you're being asked to believe here. Yeah. It's no more silly than that. No. Did you have any sympathy for the position the Scolosians were in? Yeah, I suppose you have to have some sort of sympathy. They're dying. This is, a way out that they've seen. I think in, as I say, drastic times call for drastic measures. Do you think it was unfair not to suggest trying the counter-agent? I think so. I think they could have worked. I assumed they were. I didn't think they were going to let Deela
die, be sent off to her death.
No, but they did.
They did, yeah, which I think is refreshing then. They didn't try and sugarcoat it. They just went, yeah, okay, sometimes that happens.
Yeah. And when Kirk and Deela were hooking up, do you think either of them was taking advantage of the other, or the circumstances?
Yes, and yeah, they're both taking advantage of each other, so
that's fair enough.
Fair enough then, yeah.
Yeah.
I wondered, so they've done it in real fast time?
In fast time?
Yeah. It was,
yeah, Kirk didn't last long at all, fractions of a second.
I would have been at least double that. Anyway, yeah, so there we go.
Yeah, should we get on to the trivia section?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of one trivia first.
On you.
Well, it's not really trivia, but I think I've got an answer to the point we made last week, where or the discussion we had last week about why Shatner would put himself through the sort of humiliation of acting like a donkey and a horse and all that type of stuff. And I mentioned before, I've previously read his first book up until now, and I have just listened to one of the more recent ones, Live Long and what I've learned to this point, or something like that. I mean, he talks about how much he wants to work and act, how his life is basically centred around that, and he can't think of anything worse than not working. I think it's been his work ethic's always been, you never know where the next dollar's coming from, and you have to, just get involved. And he's done lots of stuff in the past, and I think that's it. I think it's basically, it was a job, as we said back then. He wasn't the star. Star Trek wasn't as big as what it is now. He wouldn't necessarily have known what was coming next, and if he was asked to do something in the script, it was a case of, well, that's my job. I'm an actor. I get paid to do it. Let's just do it.
There wasn't a horse fetish.
That's the thing. This book, it talks a lot about how he's heavily involved in charities involving horses and that type of thing.
He's horsemanship's quite advanced. I think he's competed.
Well, there you go. So
he probably started there.
Yeah, so maybe
that's when he gained his love for horses.
He actually talks about how when he's on a horse, it's the closest you can get to a human, like a Star Trek mind meld with an animal.
Right.
So maybe he actually enjoyed it. Maybe he was thinking of himself as a horse as he was doing
one
this.
Of his own horses.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anyway, sorry. What's your trivia you have for us this week?
Oh, just the usual sort. So, original air date was the 29th of November 1968. Directed by Jude Taylor. Second of his 5 episodes. You can hear more about him on the podcast for the Paradise Syndrome. Arthur Heinemann wrote the screenplay. There were others involved in the story. This was the first of his 3 episodes for the show. He would go on to win a Daytime Emmy for his work on ABC's after-school specials, and he wrote for other shows including Little House on the Prairie, Bonanza and The Virginian. He died in 1987 at the age of 77. Kathy Brown played Deela. This was her only Star Trek appearance, but she also showed up on series like The Rockford Files, Banachek and Ironside, and died in 2003 when she was 72. Jason Evers played Rael. Again, his only Star Trek appearance, but he was in many different shows over a prolific career, including Mission Impossible, Mannix, and Happy Days, although he's maybe best known as Dr. Corter from the cult classic The Brain That Wouldn't Die.
Okay.
He died in 2005 when he was 83. Eric Holland played Ecor, very briefly in the episode. Ecor. His only Star Trek role, but he also appeared in movies including Titanic, Ghostbusters 2, and Stargate, as well as TV shows like The West Wing, Baywatch, and Cheers.
Did he wear a red bathing suit in Baywatch?
I think everyone wore a red bathing suit in Baywatch,
good.
didn't they? He died in 2020 at the age of 86. No Columbo connection this week, apart from the regulars.
Did you look very hard?
I looked very, very hard.
No stunts or musical department or
Checked
anything?
all of them.
Right, okay.
Trivia, so Chekhov is in this episode at the very start in the first scene, but that's footage from a different episode, so Walter Koenig wasn't actually used in the filming of this episode. This was one of the most expensive episodes of Season 3, given the special effects that were required, and the overall reduced budget for the show.
What special effects?
Well, they had to speed everybody up to like 35 times.
They didn't. There was no special effects. They were standing very still.
Well, they disappeared Compton, and they had phaser fire, and they had the phaser sweep. They had force fields.
Okay, yeah.
There's a fair bit, actually I just mentioned there was a fair bit of footage from next week's episode used at the start of this one, the whole Scotty log part, which creates some continuity problems with haircuts and who's on the bridge and so on. And the story's loosely based on the H.G. Wells tale, The New Accelerator.
I thought it was loosely based on Sonic the Hedgehog.
No, it's loosely based on this.
Okay.
In terms of international titles, the only two to differ from a direct translation are the Japanese one. They opted for Wakusei Tsukarasu no Kosoku Ninjin, which means high-speed people on the planet Scalos. And the Germans, who went with Was summt denn da, which translates as "What's that humming?"
I like that.
Next week, it's the 12th episode of Season 3, The Empath, which marks the halfway point in this final season.
This final and very strong season.
Yes, and in the meantime, you can find us all over social media, at Trek Podcast on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. You can go to YouTube channel and find the episodes there in audio format, and on astartrekpodcast.com. You can leave your comments on each and every show, where there's a separate post for each one.
So until then,
cheerio.
bye bye.